In this video, I want to address a very important topic that occurs often in a divorce. Most guys don't contemplate it. Almost nobody knows about it before they get married. And this is one of the many reasons why you should pay very close attention to the marriage and divorce machine that exists in the West. A lot of the traditional conservatives are still encouraging men, march into the slaughterhouse. It can't be that bad. I did it. You'll figure it out. Let me explain why. So I'll just read this here. It's from a police officer in Norway. And he's emailed me this a few days ago. He says, during the 20 years as a police officer in Norway, there was a pattern that I had gotten more and more familiar with over the last few years. We called it the three-step rocket. This phenomenon is not described in any book in the police academy, of course. The pattern reveals when the woman has decided to leave her husband and to make sure she gets sole custody when she takes the children away from the father, which also enriches her with child support. When a woman has custody, she gets more money out of the dad. So step one, she goes to the police station to report domestic violence. At this stage, she only reports violence against herself from the man. The police have a duty to initiate investigation, as domestic violence is a priority area for us. When she sees all the sympathy and attention she gets from step one, she goes immediately to step two. The next one is she reports child abuse, violence against the children. At this stage, she only reports physical and psychological violence against the children from their father. At this stage, there is a high probability that the man will be taken into custody, put in jail for several weeks, or until the case is fully investigated. Now she sees the man is out of the way, and she wants to make sure he's gone forever. This is when she goes to step three of the three-step rocket. Step three is she reports sexual abuse, sexual crimes against the children. Again, this is all false, okay? These are all considered false DV charges. At this stage, it has been a long time since the man lost the battle. In fact, he already lost at stage one. So at this stage is just the final nail in the coffin. Of course, her girlfriends support her because of the police interviews. This is something often planned in advance when a woman is getting ready to untie the knot. There's many advantages to initiating a false domestic violence charge. This falls well in line with the hashtag #MeToo era that we've seen thrown at guys like Russell Brand, Andrew Tate. You know, you can go right down the list. It's a trump card that's used. It's very, very effective. Some version of it anyway. But this three-step rocket, as he calls this police officer, is, I guess, the internal name that they gave it because it started to become so familiar. He says, I'm fighting these lies on a daily basis, but I am only one man against a system full of lies, and there's only so much I can do. I have to follow the rule of law. Okay, so then the rest of this is just thank you for your work and all that good stuff. So look, this three-step rocket or racket or whatever it is, you know, it happens to be called by these, police officers, these internal jobs. It's very interesting because when I talk about marriage and divorce and the risks involved, I often say things that it is a very high risk proposition for men to get married and generally a low reward proposition because the risks are so high. And for women, it's low risk and high reward, especially if they plan it correctly, especially if they marry across and up on the socioeconomic scale. Women don't typically marry down. They don't usually marry guys that are of lower value than them, although it does happen. They generally marry up. That's why you see the $40,000 a year hairdresser named Becky marry Kevin from the VP of sales department at the large corporation, making $250,000 a year. It's not that uncommon. So in scenarios like that, it's incredibly advantageous to her to make sure that she controls the untying of the knot. And one of the best ways to make sure that he doesn't protest, he doesn't stay in the matrimonial home, he doesn't try to slow the process down or delay it, is to get him out of the house. And to get him out of the house, one of the easiest things that women can do is just allege domestic violence. They don't need any evidence of it. They just need to say that he's done these things. They need to allege it against the children. And the most heinous of all crimes, which almost never happens with blood-related father to children, is the notion that he takes advantage of them sexually, which is just disgusting. This is one of the risks that you run into if you have a stepfather in a household. So let's say you break up with your wife or the mother of your kids, let's just call her, and she invites another guy into the house. Maybe he's got sons from a prior marriage or something like that, and you have a daughter. The probability of something happening exists, and it's a pretty strong probability, believe it or not. So when it's non-blood related, it does happen. When it's blood related, it almost never, ever happens, right? Because fathers want to protect their children, especially from heinous crimes like that. So All of these allegations, for the most part, are generally false. They have to investigate them because it's a huge priority, and we always have to believe all women. Throughout history, women have always been protected. They've always been the protected sex. You know, the Titanic goes down, it's women and children first. Men, you know, like whatever's left over, you get a few life jackets and you can freeze your nuts off in the ocean and become an ice cube. That's how it's always worked, and that's fine. It's not a bug of Homo sapiens, it's a feature. If women weren't protected, we wouldn't probably exist today. We have to protect women and children, you know, for the benefit of the human race. It just is what it is, right? Once a man plants his seed, is he needed? Of course, but you know, she carries the baby. She does all the nurturing, you know, for the first few years. You know, she's got the breast milk and all that sort of stuff. So you understand what I'm getting at here, but fathers are incredibly important. In the equation itself, we've seen that the vast majority of the incarcerated, teenage pregnancies, terrible marks in school. I think it was something like 27 of the last 28 gun violence instances in schools where they, you know, these kids that can't deal with rejection from a woman have happened in single mother households. So it's not a great scenario, you know, from the get-go. And while I understand that the traditional conservative narrative happens to be, well, you know, how bad can it be? It's, you know, it's really good for me. And a lot of these guys are like broadcasting on platforms. They're multimillionaires. They've only been in their marriages for a few years and they've got a few kids. You know, it's been said, talk when you've been married for 20, 25 years and you've got a bunch of kids and everything's still tickety-boo. And a lot of these guys generally don't encourage or recommend marriage at that step in their lives. It's generally discouraged. So this is the risk that you can run into. This is not a uncommon risk. This is a very real risk. And it's not something that is going to get fixed anytime soon. To offer a little bit of advice, maybe a little bit of a silver lining in this, to finish on a better note, I think one of the things that I could at least say at this point is there's a few things that you can do to minimize any tragedy. So the two main things that you probably want to contemplate is, of course, getting yourself properly unplugged from the lies that society keeps telling you, right? I've often said that the first step in unplugging is getting away from the lies that you've told yourself that don't serve you, and then getting away from the lies that society serves you. Most people don't even get to step one, if we're being honest. They really struggle with it in its entirety. But getting red pilled, essentially. I cover that in my book, The Unplugged Alpha. It's a bestseller on Amazon. There'll be a little link below in the description. There's a lot of great podcasts that I've done in my Unplugged Alpha podcast series. I'll put a card up on the top right. You should definitely look at. And the other thing too is, you know, once you've got yourself squared away and you understand what women respond to and what they're capable of, you generally don't march around life with blinders on, you know, thinking to yourself, oh, there's sugar and spice and all things nice, and what could possibly go wrong? I think it's incredibly important that if you deal with these kinds of relationships, especially things that are marriage or look like marriage, you know, to the state, depending on how you live in it, are handled with extreme care. You know, when I went through firearms training, you know, they basically say treat all guns as loaded. And it's not that they're going to hurt you, but they all have the capacity to hurt you. So I think that if you treat relationships with women in the West as it stands today, treat them with, they're not all going to do anything bad, but they all have the capability of doing something like this, especially when they want to get out of the marriage and maximize their hypergamous nature and get the best that they can. It's not uncommon for this to happen. It's been said by anybody in the divorce industry, especially the lawyers, and I've got a few friends that are in the space that I've spent a great deal of time with. The woman you marry is never, ever going to be the woman that you divorce. The woman you divorce is always a different version of the woman that you sat beside at your reception with all your family and friends, and you have the slides up and you're crying when the cake comes out. You do the highlight reel of your dating life and all that stuff. Not the same gal, okay? So don't think that, you know, just because you took vows to be together forever and, you know, sickness and health and richer and poor and all that stuff, it's going to continue in perpetuity. Because for the 50% of people that it doesn't work out with, even the remaining that stay together, less than 13% after 8 years report being in a state of love or even close to bliss. So be very careful. The other thing that I would mention as well too, since this is a topic about divorce, I've got a course on essentially untying the knot in a thoughtful, practical sort of way. It's a divorce course. It's even suitable for anybody that might be contemplating getting married, so at least they know what they're potentially getting into, especially for guys. That's linked below. We'll see you guys in the next video. Drop a comment below. Peace out.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the courses tab. Newer to the channel, hit subscribe.